Notre Dame's quarterback battle is heating up, and quarterback coach Gino Guidugli made it clear the competition is wide open. Meanwhile, running back coach Ja'Juan Seider has 5 running backs who all deserve to play, but only 3 will see the field. And finally, the Notre Dame men's and women's basketball programs are going in 2 completely different directions. We cover it all on today's Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome in to Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and I am thrilled to have you here on Tuesday, March 25th, and thanks for making this your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in the episode. Also wanted to remind you to please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast. Now let's get into it. Notre Dame spring practice, I should say, is in full swing, and even though the media has not been able to attend practice since the opening one last Wednesday, we were able to get our first real glimpse into 2 of the most important competitions on the team when quarterback coach Gino Guidugli and running back coach Ja'Juan Seider spoke to the media for the first time since spring practice started. And with the quarterback competition heating up and 5 talented running backs vying for playing time, there is a lot to unpack. So in today's show, we're going to dive into what Guidugli and Seider had to say about the battles at each position and what we can expect moving forward. Then we're going to shift gears to basketball because it is March after all, and things are going really well for the Notre Dame women's team, but only getting worse for the men's team. Konieczny and Tae Davis are entering the transfer portal on the men's side, while Coach Ivy's squad advanced to the Sweet 16. I have some thoughts on that, but we're going to save that for the end. Let's begin with what Coach Gino Guidugli had to say about the quarterback. So he provided an overview of where things stand after a few practices, and of course, the competition is still wide open, and it is a legitimate 3-man competition. It is not just CJ Carr going up against Steve Angeli or Angeli versus Minchey. No, every single one of these guys is getting reps with the ones, and they're going to try as hard as they can to split them evenly. He had one quote that I think stood out there at the beginning when he said, quote, "We have to put these guys in situations where they have to make real-time decisions and to see how they react." And he also said the goal is to make things as game-like as possible so that when we get to fall camp, we have a clear picture of who our guy is. I would love to play the full quote live on the show, but I can't do that due to copyright reasons. So I'm going to just quote him verbatim sometimes and paraphrase other times. But I think what you get from those first 2 quotes is that they are trying to simulate game situations as close as they possibly can in spring practice, because it's great if a quarterback can go out there and they can make throws in one-on-ones, on air, on 7-on-7, even when they're going up against a defense, but nothing compares to a real live game situation when not only are you playing in front of 80,000 people in the crowd, but also you have 11 guys on the other side of the ball trying to bring you down. So it's difficult to do in spring practice, right? You want to make sure that you keep your guys healthy, and as we've talked about before on the show, a lot of the starters are not going to be full participants in the spring. They are still able to do team and go good on good as much as they possibly can, and more so than pretty much any other point in the season. Like, the team will go for 1s-on-1s and they'll do 2s-on-2s in the beginning of fall camp, but then once they kind of have things figured out, then they start to shift to in-season mode. And then once you're in the season, very rarely do ones go up against the ones because they're already doing that on Saturday and you're trying to preserve the guys as much as you can in practice. So this is a big opportunity, not just in terms of the chance to become the starter, but really to develop as a quarterback, because I think a lot of these quarterbacks do a ton of time or do a ton of stuff in the offseason. They're working with quarterback coaches. They're constantly working on their craft. But then when they have to apply that to real life game situations, that's where you really learn about who is the best out there. And that's exactly what Gino Guidugli said in this press conference. He said, quote, "There's no doubt about it, team. You got to be in there under fire, making decisions under fire. That is the only way." Quote, when it ended, when he was talking about what he needs to learn from these guys and when is the best time to do it. And I think this is critical for all of their development, because Steve Angeli is really the only person in that room who has had real live game experience. He started a game. He played for Notre Dame in the Sun Bowl a couple years ago. He came in last year a lot during garbage time, and then in one of the biggest situations of the entire season in the Orange Bowl, led Notre Dame down to a field goal at the end of the first half against Penn State. So he's the only one who's actually felt that, who's gone out there and experienced it. I mean, I know I guess Kenny Minchey had a touchdown against Purdue, but I think by that point there was like 12 people in the crowd, and Notre Dame was just toying with him. It was a borderline scrimmage at that point. But I really like that the goal of this is to put all of these guys in game-like situations. And then Gino also spent some time on each individual quarterback, and he had really high praise for Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli is approaching this spring as if it's his job. He's the oldest guy in the room. He's been the backup for the past 2 years, so it makes sense that he kind of just assumes the job is his. He has the experience, the leadership presence, and the understanding of what it takes to win at the highest level of college football. Gino backed it up in his comments. He said, quote, I think Steve's just approaching it like it's his job. Like, I'm the guy that everybody's got to beat out. I'm the guy with the experience. I'm the guy that's next in line. This is my job, end quote. I can tell you from watching that press conference that Steve absolutely carries himself like the starter. Not to say that he's arrogant or anything like that or overconfident. He just looks like a guy who is the starting quarterback of this team. There is some serious confidence there. Someone even asked him about, how much the Penn State drive, how much leading the offense on the field impacted his confidence. And he immediately said, I was confident before that drive. So even though I'm sure that it did some good things for his confidence, more so the assurance in himself that he can go out there and execute going up against one of the best defenses in college football, the fact that he didn't really need that to sort of prove that to himself, I think is really important. I also think that the team really respects Steve as a leader. I've talked about it before on the show that like leadership is one of the biggest questions I have about this team going into spring practice. And even though like all the coaches would most rather have like the QB1, the clear QB1 be a captain, like there's a world where Steve Angeli might be QB2, maybe Kenny Minchey beats him out, or maybe CJ Carr beats him out. But if the whole team looks at Steve as the leader because he's been around for going on, this will be his fourth year, then, so be it. Because I think he really cares about the University of Notre Dame. And he said that winning the starting job means everything to him. And I think that the team respects him for waiting around, working hard, consistently showing up every single day, despite the fact that he's been jumped over by 2 transfers now. I just think that says a lot about him and his standing with the rest of the team. But Gino was also very complimentary of Kenny Minchey. When he was asked, where has Minchey improved the most, he said mentally. Kenny is on it now, and we know the arm talent has always been there, but his decision-making is critical. We haven't seen too much of Kenny Minchey outside of some practice clips. The only real-life game action we've actually seen from him was the Purdue game I just mentioned that barely counts, and then the spring game the past couple years. His first spring game didn't go great, but who really cares? He was an early enrollee freshman. It really does go that well for early enrollee freshmen, so I don't really put too much stock into that at all. Last year in the spring game, I thought he was terrific, but he did make one really bad interception early on. His footwork was bad. He just forced the ball in there on third down. Luke Talich made the play. So if that happens in practice and he says that he needs to work on his decision-making, that kind of backs things up because, like I said, he always has had the talent. He also, Gino at least, admitted that Kenny is the most athletic of the bunch and is really accurate. I think that aspect of Kenny's game gives him the best chance to win this job because Denbrock is still figuring out the offense, but we know he likes to run with the quarterback, and Kenny Minchey is the best at the designed run compared to any of these guys. The question is Minchey so good with his legs that he can make up for other parts of his game that other guys might be better at, or they might have a little bit more experience, like in the case of Steve Angeli. There's really no way you can replace that experience, but with Minchey, if he's just that much of a better runner, that brings a whole new dynamic to the offense. And then for CJ, maybe it's the arm talent, right? If CJ has more arm talent, then Kenny Minchey can make a few more throws, even though I don't think the gap there is that big. If Kenny Minchey is just better with his legs, that's going to go a long way for him. So that's really what spring is all about. It's answering those questions. Physically, I think Kenny looks like he's been in a college weight program for a few years now. He looks like he's more lean and looks like a more modern quarterback. So Gino's really high on Kenny Minchey. I think that he is firmly in this competition, has a real chance to win the job. And then, of course, you've got CJ Carr, the youngest guy in the room, but he certainly doesn't act that way. I think he looks at this job as it is his. And Gino Guidugli really complimented his understanding of the offense. Quote, he has a full understanding of what we're trying to accomplish on offense, run game, pass game, protections, run scheme, all that. So I think that the fact that CJ has been in the system the same amount as everyone else, because even though he's only been in college, this will be his second season. Mike Denbrock joined the team around the same time he did last winter. So I think that levels the playing field to some degree. I mean, Steve Angeli still has the benefit of being in a college program for 2 more years, and Kenny Minchey has 1 more year on him as well. But The fact that CJ already has a full understanding of the playbook and what Notre Dame is trying to do on offense is huge for him, and I think it gives him a real shot to win the job. But he is trying to go from fourth string, which is what he was last season, to first string, and that is a massive jump. He put on a lot of good weight. I think he's more physically ready to be a college quarterback. Yes, he is coming off that injury, but he also said that the time he spent rehabbing the elbow and really focusing on getting his arm back up to speed has helped improve his arm strength. He thinks that he has a little bit more zip on the ball. He can throw it further. So that's all great to hear, but then can he put that and translate it to the actual field? That is what we're all waiting to see. And at this point, the big thing to watch here in the coming weeks in spring practice, obviously, you've got the blue and gold game on April 12th, but there's a jersey scrimmage. I think it's 2 weeks from today where the media is going to be in attendance, and I think this is the closest thing to live game action that we're going to get with ones going up against the ones, and this is going to be absolutely critical for who wins the starting quarterback job, because I think the spring game isn't going to be like your normal spring game. Marcus Freeman said they're going to still do something, but it's going to be a variation of what they used to do, and I feel like in that jersey scrimmage, it is going to be as close to an actual game as it can possibly be, and that is the thing that everyone is going to be watching for. These guys are going to be building up to that moment, and it's not like that day is going to decide the quarterback competition, but it is going to be very, very important for every single one of these quarterbacks. But quarterback is not the only position where there is fierce competition. The Notre Dame running back room is absolutely loaded, arguably the most talented position on the entire team, and Ja'Juan Seider has to find his best three guys. That's coming up next. Today's episode is presented by Nissan, and the Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College Basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off national champion and Hall of Fame coaches on their way to the Sweet 16. They accomplished all this without their second leading scorer, Boogie Fland, for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder, Adu Thero, so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. In addition to hearing from quarterback coach Gino Guidugli, we also got to hear from running back coach Ja'Juan Seider. We got to meet him really for the first time a few weeks ago at his introductory press conference, but this was his first time speaking to the media after he had the opportunity to go out there and be with his guys on the practice field. And the biggest takeaway I have is the running back room is the deepest on the entire team. They are absolutely loaded with talent, and the competition is even more intense than I thought. And to be clear, I was very high in the running backs going into the season. I think everyone who had a brain was going to be high on this group that has Jeremiyah Love leading the way, and then Jadarian Price right behind him, and then young guys like Aneyas Williams and Kedren Young right there in the mix. Also, the staff from Jamie Uyama from Irish Sports Daily, Notre Dame returned 96% of the carries that came from running backs last season, and they were already one of the best running back rooms in the entire country. Now, they added Payne back into the mix now that he has recovered from his injury that he suffered in the blue and gold game last season. I understand that it's easy to kind of dismiss him because he wasn't part of the group last year, but he is a good player. So we already know that the top two guys in this room are great players. Love is one of the best players in the entire country, let alone at the running back position. Jadarian Price has already proven himself. He came up huge in big situations last year for the Irish, and then we saw flashes of Aneyas Williams, especially in the college football playoff, and you think, as good as he was as a true freshman, just imagine what he could be down the road. And then Kedren Young redshirted last season, but he's an extremely talented player as well. And the dark horse in all of this is Payne. And I'll admit it, I dismissed him when I shouldn't have, but it's important to remember that Dylan McCullough, pretty smart guy as a running back coach, he trusted Payne on third down, and to be Notre Dame's third running back in 2023 when they had Audric Estime on the team and a freshman Jeremiyah Love. I did not know until this press conference from Ja'Juan Seider that he actually recruited Payne at Penn State. So he clearly thinks highly of Payne as well. He's experienced, and he is absolutely in this battle to be the third back, or at least a factor in this room. So with so many talented guys and so many guys vying for, only a finite amount of carries, this is what Seider had to say on his philosophy about playing time in the rotation. He said the best players will separate, and there's just no way they can go into a game playing 5 running backs. That's impossible. It's hard to do 3, which kind of makes sense. I mean, when he was at Penn State last year, they really just ran 2 guys. It was Nicholas Singleton and Kedren Allen. Those are 2 of the best running backs in the entire country, and they traded off. But with this room, there's so much talent in there. I think you have to figure out a way to play 3 guys so you can keep them around and invested. So when he was talking about every single guy, he obviously raved about Jeremiyah Love. He didn't try to lump him in with the rest of the group. He said, we know we got a dude who is different here. And I'm glad that he pointed out the obvious, because it's just unnecessary sometimes to try to fit a guy in with the rest of the group just to make it seem like it's all one, even unit. It's not. Jeremiyah Love is special. He's elite in several categories: explosiveness, versatility, route running, ability, vision, everything. Seider even said that Love is one of the best guys he has ever seen run routes from the running backs position. So he's definitely going to be the number 1 guy. I think he needs more carries than he had last season. But then behind him, it's going to be a bunch of guys vying for that second and third spots. Now, Jadarian Price is obviously the projected number 2 back for next season, and for good reason. He was excellent for Notre Dame when he was out there, but he was a little bit inconsistent at times. Sometimes he tried to bounce plays outside when he didn't have to, and then we get caught up behind the line of scrimmage. But he is extremely explosive. Jadarian Price even said he thinks I'm the most explosive, although some people might disagree with that. The fact that there's even a conversation to be had about Jadarian Price compared to Jeremiyah Love in terms of explosiveness is a good problem to have. Do I think Price is the most explosive? No, but he did break off some really big runs for the Irish last season. He is also fully removed from the Achilles injury, and now that he's in his 4th year, I'm confident that he's going to be better about running the ball north and south when he has to, bouncing outside when he can. But I think he would be a starter on like 120 teams in college football. So they have a great duo at the top. But who is going to be that third back? You've got Aneyas Williams. He was the third back last year. Got on the field, made some huge plays for the Irish, even in the college football playoff. But then there's Kedren Young, who now looks like he's more ready to play. He's 235 pounds. He put on more good weight, just looks rock solid. He's not necessarily Audric Esme level big, but there is no one in that room that is built like Kedren Young. And considering he redshirted last season, I think he is ready to take a big jump this season. So even though Aneyas Williams was the guy who played more than Young last year, it doesn't mean that's going to be the case this year. Although Aneyas Williams is obviously going to improve as well. So that is going to be really interesting to watch over the course of these next few weeks watching Williams go up against Young. And then there's Jadarian Payne, reliable, steady, does everything right. Coach Seider said, quote, he does everything right. He's going to be in the right fit on pro protection. He's going to be on the right read keys. He's going to know where he's supposed to fit in the pass game, end quote. I just think that Jadarian Payne is such a reliable player, and he brings something to the table that all coaches want: consistency and reliability, and that is absolutely what you have with Jadarian Payne. So what are they going to do? Because he said they cannot play all 5 guys, and Love is certainly one, so they're really only fighting for 2 spots, and I would be stunned if Jadarian Price is not on running back 2. So who is going to win that running back 3 spot out of Jadarian Payne, Aneyas Williams, and Kedren Young? Earlier, I would not have predicted Jadarian Payne had any chance, just given how high the ceiling, or how high I believe the ceilings are for Young and Williams. But I think he is right there in the mix. I really do. I think that he's got a good chance to be in that spot, more so than I thought before. But it's really just going to be a test for those young guys. Can they be consistent? Are they going to be in the right place when they're asked to be there? Because that is going to be so important. That is what Jadarian Payne has over them. He has the experience. But I just think that when you look at Williams and you look at Young, you want those guys around for a long time. And I do think that is going to play a part in this decision, because Jadarian Payne only has a couple more years left at most. Meanwhile, Williams, Young redshirted this past season, so you could theoretically have him for 3 or 4 more years. Williams, best case scenario, he's probably out after 2 if he ends up going pro. But if those guys are the future of the room, how does that factor into the equation? If Jadarian Payne is simply just better than both of them, Williams and Young, then he's just going to be the third back. It's not really a question at that point. But when you have a guy like Williams and a guy like Young, who you really want to be a part of this program for a long time, that is going to factor in the equation, because you don't want them to transfer. Ultimately, I do think that one of these 5 are really one of these four, because Jeremiyah Love's not transferring, but Price, Young, Williams, or Payne, someone is going to be the odd man out in this situation. Like I say all the time when it comes to the quarterback competition, someone has to come in third. It can't be a three-way tie. And then in the case of the running backs, like it's not going to be even after Love. So this is really a battle for that running back 3 spot, and it is even more intense than I thought before, and it is going to be really interesting to follow because these young guys and Ja'Juan Payne are going to get a lot more carries while Love and honestly Price as well sit out for a lot of reps because they had played so deep in the season last year for Notre Dame. So the quarterback competition takes up a lot of breath and certainly a lot of air on this show and a lot of other shows and also in a lot of other articles about Notre Dame football. But I swear this running back position is becoming more and more interesting by the day. And there's just so many interesting battles going on along the offense throughout spring practice because you also got the offensive line. So a lot of fun to watch. I think it's going to be really entertaining to see how this unfolds here over the course of these next few weeks because these guys are so talented and competition brings out the best in people. And I think that this is just going to take the Notre Dame running back room to heights that we didn't even expect going into the spring. All right, while the football team is working through position battles, the basketball teams are heading in complete opposite directions. So coming up next, we're going to talk about roster turnover for the men and a potential deep tournament run for the women. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, I want to wrap up today's show by talking some hoops because I just spent countless hours this past weekend watching the NCAA tournament, and I realized just how far away this Notre Dame men's basketball team is from really competing with any of these teams at that level. But meanwhile, the women's team is doing great. They just advanced to their 4th straight Sweet 16. I want to talk about each one of these programs for a little bit because they're just going in complete opposite directions. So on the men's side, things are going from bad to worse. They just came off an extremely disappointing season in year 2 of the Micah Shrewsbury era. And then now that the transfer portal is opened, 2 guys have already entered their names in the portal, Konieczny and Tae Davis. Davis was second on the team in points per game and rebounds per game, was averaging 15.1 points per game and 5.3 rebounds per game. This will be his second time in the portal because he actually transferred over from Seton Hall to Notre Dame. And this is a big loss. He was the second best player on the team behind Burton, and there are so many times, especially when Marcus Burton was out with an injury, where the only person who could generate any sort of offense on their own was Tae Davis. Now, meanwhile, Konieczny, his lack of playing time, or at least decrease in playing time this year, was one of the most confusing storylines of the year, considering this team struggled so much offensively and they couldn't shoot the ball. You look at what he did last season in 2024, he played 22 minutes a game, had 7.7 points per game, and shot 33% from 3. So it's not like J.J. Redick out there, but he was a good shooter. Then this year, he saw his minutes decrease a lot. He was a non-factor, had a lot of coaches' DNPs, and averaged 16 minutes a game. His points per game dropped to 4, and his shooting percentage dipped as well, but I think that was a product of him just not being in any sort of rhythm because he was barely out there. Shot 28% this year, but he is gone. He's a South Bend kid, so I think this is really disappointing. I think the writing was on the wall when Tom Noy, our guy, friend of the program, men's basketball beat writer, was talking about Konieczny on Twitter, and then a relative of Konieczny was replying to Tom and was basically presenting the case for Konieczny to get more playing time, looking at his stats from last year. And I'm like, okay, that's not good if they're airing out their grievances online. But I just feel like he should have had a little bit more opportunities. Micah Shrewsbury opted to go with some of the younger guys like Cole Serta late in the year, and even though they have some potential, I do think that there was a role, or there should have been a role for Konieczny on this team, but still, losing Davis hurts more. I don't think they're done. I think more guys are going to enter their name in the transfer portal, and I think the one everyone is going to be looking at is Marcus Burton. What does he decide to do? He certainly has a decision to make. Another South Bend kid, best player on the team the past 2 seasons, and I think he absolutely deserves to play on a team that's competing in the NCAA tournament. Like if Marcus Burton was playing on this stage right now, he could absolutely go off for 25, 30 points and become a March Madness hero. I wish it was for Notre Dame, but right now they look so far away from competing in the NCAA tournament. I feel like his best chance of playing in the tournament is to transfer elsewhere. Or he could elect to stay at Notre Dame, stay close to home, and try to build this program and maybe be someone that other transfers can look at and say, hey, I want to play with that guy. Maybe this team isn't so far away. But I don't know what he's going to decide to do. I think we're all just waiting to hear. Obviously, if he comes back, that's huge for this program, a much-needed jolt of positivity, but there's going to be a lot of suitors out there. There's going to be a lot of teams who are willing to spend a lot of money because he is just that good, and I feel like, whatever happens next year is going to be a huge, huge year for Micah Shrewsbury, and he'll at least have a lot more going his way if Marcus Burton decides to come back, but really, a lot of questions about what's next for Micah Shrewsbury. I think he has to hit the portal hard no matter what happens with Burton, but it's going to be tough to convince good players to come to Notre Dame right now. So they're going to have to increase their NIL investment into this program. They've already invested a ton of money into Micah Shrewsbury, 7-year deal worth a ton of money, but the freshman class you're bringing in isn't enough. You look at what Rutgers did this past year. They had a great freshman class. You got Ron Harper. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, and they have another top 10 pick on that team as well. They didn't even finish 500. It is hard to rely on freshmen in this era of college basketball. So Notre Dame has to get old, and they have to stay old. And the best way to do that is to get really aggressive in the transfer portal and convince some guys to come to Notre Dame. Meanwhile, let's give some love to the women's basketball team. Not going to pretend like I've been locked in on them every game throughout the year, but I have been watching them from afar, and they have now made it to the Sweet 16 for the 4th year in a row. They won their first 2 games by combined 73 points. Let me say that again, 73 points in the NCAA tournament. They beat the brakes off Stephen F. Austin and then just housed Michigan by 21 points at home. This was a really nice bounce back for them after they lost 3 of 5 to close out the regular season. There was a scary moment when their star, Olivia Miles, rolled her ankle, but she did not miss any extended times. And then their real superstar, Hannah Hidalgo, was incredibly efficient. She scored 21 points on 8 of 14 from the field against Michigan. My concern is that she played a lot. She played 36 minutes in that game, as did most of the starters. Depth has been a big concern for this team all year. I think you can contribute their slide at the end of the regular season to the fact that these players were just gassed by the end of the year. Fortunately for them, they play 2 games on the weekend, and then they get nearly a full week off. They play TCU on Saturday. This is the 4th time they've advanced to the Sweet 16, but this has been the stopping point for the last 3. Their last 3 seasons ended in the Sweet 16. They're looking to get to the Elite 8 this season. They lost to TCU earlier on in the year, like very early on, 76-68. TCU is very good. They're 33-3 on the season. They are led by Haley Van Lith, who transferred from Louisville to LSU, now to TCU, just college basketball. And this could be a classic. These are 2 really good teams. A lot of star power out there. I am certainly excited to watch them considering, they're just really fun. They're exciting. They have a great offense. They pass the ball. They move the ball. And I just wanted to give them a shout out because we've talked a lot about the problems with the men's program on this show. We have not given the love to the women's team that they deserve. So I'm going to be rooting them on this weekend and hopefully throughout the rest of the NCAA tournament. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast all tournament long. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow morning. In the meantime, remember, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast, and you can show your support for this show by liking the video below if you're watching along on YouTube, or you can rate the podcast 5 stars and leave a review on your preferred platform. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.